Multiple current and former Justice Department and FBI officials have reportedly started reaching out to lawyers in anticipation of being criminally investigated by the incoming Trump administration. 3 people with knowledge of the deliberations tell NBC News that many DOJ staffers were already nervous about the possibility they would be targeted by Trump loyalists, and the selection of former Congressman Matt Gaetz to lead the Department of Justice has only increased their sense of alarm. Joining us now, author, columnist, and conservative writer Matt Lewis. Matt, we're glad you could join us this morning. So let's talk about this right now. This idea, this chilling effect that so many across the federal bureaucracy, but particularly those attached to the DOJ, feel with Trump coming in and trying to populate those agencies with his people. How real, how worried should they be?
I think it's real. This is really Donald Trump's campaign theme, was retribution. He's been talking about this for years. He personally feels like he was the victim of a political witch hunt. Now, we can put aside the evidence and the actual details. I think that Donald Trump truly believes that. And if you look at the early selections he's made, including Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, it looks like he is putting people in place who would implement this campaign of retribution. So this is obviously a very un-American thing to do. I don't want to become too freaked out with the Trump derangement syndrome, but it's hard to imagine what he would be doing differently if he did not intend to kind of weaponize the Department of Justice.
Yeah, Matt, I think that's exactly right. I mean, we've heard from so many who say, "Oh, it's fine. He just says things. He doesn't mean it. Like, it won't be so different. The democracy will be fine." But we don't know that, because we have learned to largely take him at his word, and these are exactly the threats he made, and he seems to be staffing up in order to carry them out. You did write, though, that there are some silver linings here for some conservatives. Tell us what you meant by that.
Well, first, I wrote that before some of these selections, such as Matt Gaetz. But I do think it's important to try to keep perspective. So I wrote a column for The Hill saying, what could be the silver linings? What good could come from a Trump administration? And if you're a progressive, there may not be any good. It may be bad all the way down. As a conservative, as someone who is sort of in the Reaganite tradition, I think there could be some good things. The early selections of Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, I think Susie Wiles as Chief of Staff suggests it's going to be certainly less chaotic. And I think that certainly Donald Trump will be a staunch ally of Israel. I think we could actually do something to rein in Iran's nuclear ambitions. Donald Trump clearly cares about the economy. Now, I think some of his policies, the tariffs, could be inflationary and undermine that, but he certainly wants to do something on the economy. And you were talking earlier about Ukraine. Perhaps there's a way that we can wind this down in a manner that doesn't appease Putin and have him coming back later for more. So I think there is some possibilities for silver linings, even though I should say I'm also probably more worried than I am optimistic.
I think that's a reasonable approach. So, Matt, let's take Trump at his word that he wants these people in his cabinet, and if needed, he'll try to force them through recess appointments, like try a real test of the Senate, trying to break the Senate. How do you see that playing out? There's an institutionalist now in John Thune heading the upper chamber, but there's also not been a lot of precedent for Republicans standing up to Trump.
Totally right there. If you're betting on Republicans standing up and being strong, then you're losing money over the course of the last certainly 9 years. He has basically rolled over them and tamed them. Look, I do think it's important for the Senate to kind of exercise its independence and the advise and consent that they have. And they very well may do that when it comes to Matt Gaetz. I think the problem is, at the end of the day, Donald Trump is going to get somebody that he wants in these key positions, and it may be that person's even worse, actually, than Matt Gaetz. If the Republican Senate can deny him Matt Gaetz, I don't know how many people, how many times they can get away with that. And so at the end of the day, the die was cast back the first Tuesday of November. Donald Trump will get the cabinet he wants and maybe have just different names than we think right now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And the pace of these picks have just been relentless. Some big ones do remain, though. We're certainly all waiting for the head of the FBI, as well as Secretary of the Treasury. There's been reporting there that some real disagreements in his camp about that. We, of course, will stay on it. Author, columnist, and conservative writer Matt Lewis. Matt, thank you. We really appreciate you being with us this morning.